The living room felt like a courtroom with me as the defendant. My entire family had gathered for what they called an intervention. Dad, Mom, Uncle Robert, Aunt Margaret, and my cousins Amanda and Jason, all here to discuss my apparent failure at life. Olivia Dad began holding what looked like prepared notes. We love you, but we can't stand by and watch you destroy your life anymore. At 31, I was apparently still young enough for family interventions about my choices. I shifted uncomfortably in the chair they'd positioned, in the center of their judgmental circle. Dad, I appreciate the concern, but let us finish, Mom interrupted. We've all agreed. Someone needs to say what we're thinking. What they were all thinking? I looked around at faces that should have trusted me. Should have known that a double-knit graduate might understand her own career path. Your cousin Amanda just bought her third investment property, Uncle Robert announced, gesturing toward his smugly smiling daughter. Real success, real future. And Jason May Jr. partner Aunt Margaret added, real money contributing to society, real money, real success. The irony was suffocating. Olivia, you're 31. Dad continued consulting his notes. You live in a one-bedroom apartment most people would consider substandard. You drive a 10-year-old car. You dress like, he searched for diplomatic words, like someone who's given up on professional appearances. And you're alone, Mom added, voice breaking. No husband, no children, no prospects. What kind of life is that? The kind of life where I had spent 8 years developing breakthrough gene therapies that could revolutionize treatment for genetic diseases. But they only saw the surface. The modest apartment, the old Toyota, the discount store clothes. We know you think you're working on something important, Dad said, but be realistic. How many people actually make it in biotechnology? How many PhDs spend their whole lives chasing funding that never comes? If you just listen to what we have listened. Aunt Margaret cut me off. For years, we've heard about genetic therapies and revolutionary treatments, but talk doesn't pay rent, Olivia. Dreams don't put food on the table. Uncle Robert leaned forward in his wise businessman pose. I've been in real estate 25 years. I know success. Success is financial stability, professional recognition, social status. What you're doing, he gestured dismissively. This isn't success. This biotech thing isn't working, Dan declared. Time to face facts. This biotech thing, 8 years of 18-hour days, groundbreaking research, and patents that would reshape medicine, reduced to this biotech thing. We have a plan, Mom said, producing a folder. Uncle Robert has pharmaceutical sales connections. Good pay advancement opportunities using your science background. Pharmaceutical sales, I'd repeated flatly. Respectable career. Aunt Margaret nodded. My neighbor's daughter does very well in medical devices. Beautiful house in Westchester. And Amanda knows nonprofit people. Dad added, lots of opportunities for someone with your education to make a real difference while earning decent money. Make a real difference by implementing someone else's vision instead of my own groundbreaking research. Most importantly, Mom said, patting my hand, you need to start building a life that makes sense. You can't spend your 30s like your 20s. What's wrong with my 20s? You isolated yourself. Work over relationships. Lab time over social time. Look what everyone else accomplished. I looked. Amanda, successful in real estate, married to a hedge fund manager. She couldn't stand. Jason climbing corporate ladders at firms that helped pharmaceutical companies avoid liability for problems I was solving. Uncle Robert measuring worth by square footage and car logos. It's time to be practical, Dad continued. You've had your experimental phase. Now think about your future. This is my future. No honey. Mom said sadly, this is your fantasy. Your future is when you stop chasing impossible dreams and build something real. Impossible dreams. If only they knew Nexus Genomics was going public today. If only they knew those impossible dreams were worth over $5 billion. We want what's best for you. Jason said we're family. What's best is giving up everything I've worked for to sell pharmaceuticals. What's best, Uncle Robert said firmly, is accepting that life requires compromise. You can't save the world and have a comfortable life. You have to choose. Why can't I have both? Because that's not how the world works, Dad declared with finality. The world works through practical decisions and realistic expectations. That's when the television interrupted. The background news had been murmuring all afternoon, ignored, until suddenly it cut to breaking coverage. This is CNBC, with breaking news from Wall Street, the anchor announced urgently. My stomach dropped. Today was IPO day, the day 8 years of secret work would become public knowledge. Biotech startup Nexus Genomics goes public at $5.1 billion valuation. Making founder Olivia Martinez, the words echoed in sudden, complete silence. I watched my family's faces transform, confusion, disbelief, shock. The youngest woman to take a biotech company public since Elizabeth Holmes. Though unlike Theranos Nexus, Genomics has multiple FDA-approved treatments already generating revenue. Dad's mouth hung open. Mom went pale. Uncle Robert stared like the TV had spoken alien language. Martinez, who holds a controlling 68% stake, is now worth an estimated $3.4 billion, making her one of the wealthiest self-made women under 40. The silence was deafening, clock-ticking someone's stomach, rumbling my heartbeat, thundering. The company's revolutionary gene therapy treatments for Huntington's disease and cystic fibrosis has shown remarkable clinical success, with FDA fast-tracking additional treatments for Alzheimer's and Parkinson's. Is that our Olivia? Aunt Margaret whispered. Stock opened at $89 per share, climbing to $127 in the first hour, suggesting investors believe the valuation may be conservative. That's impossible, Jason breathed, but it wasn't impossible. It was 8 years of work I'd kept secret, dreading this exact moment when they'd realized everything they thought about my life was wrong. Martinez founded Nexus Genomics 8 years ago in her apartment after leaving Harvard Medical School. The company has developed proprietary gene editing techniques, revolutionizing treatment for genetic diseases. Dan turned to me, face mixing confusion and awe. Olivia, are they talking about you? I nodded, voice failing. The IPO makes Martinez the 14th richest woman in America and youngest billionaire in biotech. Forbes has reached out about featuring her on their Breakthrough Innovations cover. You're a billionaire, Mom whispered. 3.4 billion, apparently. Chows erupted, everyone talking at once. But your tiny apartment, your 10-year-old car, Target clothes. How is this possible? I raised my hand. Miraculously, silence fell. It's possible because for 8 years I put every spare dollar into research and development. I cared more about building something meaningful than looking like I was building something meaningful. Why didn't you tell us? Dad asked, hurt clear in his voice. The dreaded question. How do you explain you didn't trust family with dreams they'd spent years dismissing as fantasies? Because every time I explained my work, you told me to be realistic. Every time I discussed breakthrough potential, you suggested pharmaceutical sales instead. We didn't know you were succeeding, Mom protested. I tried telling you the biotech success doesn't look like real estate or law success. It comes with patent approvals and clinical trials, not quarterly bonuses or company cars. Uncle Robert stared like I'd grown a second head. You're saying, while we thought you were struggling, you were building a billion-dollar company. I'm saying while he thought I was wasting my life, I was working to save lives. The $1 billion is just what the market thinks that work is worth. But your apartment, Amanda started, costs $200 instead of $4,000, letting me put $2,800 monthly into research equipment. Your car cost $8,000 instead of $80,000, meaning I could afford another mass spectrometer. Your clothes cost $500 yearly instead of $5,000, letting me hire better research assistants. Silence as they processed this. So you lived like you're poor while you're actually... Jason trailed off, while investing in something more important than my image. Yes, Dad sat heavily. I don't know who you are anymore. I'm the same person I was an hour ago. Same person coming to family dinners, listening to lectures about being practical. Only now you know what I've actually been doing. You let us think you were failing, Aunt Margaret accused. I let you make assumptions based on appearances instead of asking about substance. There's a difference. The TV continued. FDA approved Nexus Genomics' first treatments, with last quarter's revenue reaching $847 million. The company employs over 400 researchers with partnerships at major medical centers worldwide. $847 million Uncle Robert slowly. In 1 quarter more than my real estate firm makes in 5 years, Amanda whispered. More than my law firm makes in 10, Jason added. Looking around, I saw something new in their faces. Respect. Not grudging tolerance or patient disappointment, but actual respect for my accomplishments. Olivia, Dad said, finally, I owe you an apology. We all do. Dad, you don't. Yes, I do. I spent this afternoon telling you to be practical, realistic, like everyone else. But you were already more successful than any of us dreamed. Success isn't the point. The point is, I was doing something I believed in, something meaningful. Whether it made me rich didn't change the work's value, but it did make you rich. Aunt Margaret pointed out it made the work financially sustainable. Money is just a tool for more research, helping more patients, developing more treatments. Mom was crying. Honey, I am so sorry. Sorry for not believing, for thinking you were wasting your life, for wanting you to be someone you're not. You wanted me happy and secure. Those are terrible things, but you were already happy and secure. We couldn't see it because it didn't match our idea of happiness and security. The news showed projections. Analysts predict Nexus Genomics could reach $15 billion valuation within 3 years as additional treatments gain FDA approval. 15 billion, Jason breathed. Martinez announced 30% of profits will provide reduced-cost treatments to developing countries, making her not just one of America's youngest billionaires, but most philanthropically minded. 30% of profits, Amanda asked. I'm ensuring treatments reach people who need them regardless of ability to pay. What's the point of curing genetic diseases if only wealthy people afford the cure? Uncle Robert shook his head. I don't understand you. You could live like a queen, but you're giving money away and living in a tiny apartment. I'm living exactly how I want. Perfect apartment for my needs. Work I love, ability to help people who need it. What more could I want? A husband, Mom suggested hopefully. Children, social life, I laughed. I'm dating someone wonderful. Nihei researcher who understands why my work matters. We discuss marriage when things settle down. You're dating someone. She brightened. Someone I met at a gene therapy conference. Someone sharing my interests, supporting my goals. Someone who thinks it's awesome. I care more about changing the world than impressing people. Why didn't you tell us? Because every time I mentioned someone, you immediately asked about marriage, his job, his family. I got tired of relationships being evaluated like business mergers. Dad was quiet, then spoke softly. We owe you an explanation, too. You don't owe me anything. We were scared. Scared you were too smart for your own good, too idealistic, too willing to sacrifice practical concerns for abstract principles. We've seen brilliant people fail, refusing to compromise. We wanted to protect you, Mom added. Make sure you didn't spend your life chasing something that would never materialize. We thought we were helping, Aunt Margaret said, teaching important lessons about how the world works, but we were forcing you into a mold that didn't fit. Uncle Robert admitted trying to make you successful in ways that made sense to us instead of trusting you to succeed in ways that made sense to you. I felt tension I hadn't realized I'd been carrying finally release. For 8 years, I'd felt like I was disappointing family by pursuing my path. It never occurred to me they'd been trying to protect me from disappointment. I understand why you worried. I understand why my choices seemed risky and impractical, but I wish you trusted me enough to let me take those risks. We should have, Dad said firmly, should have trusted the daughter we raised to make good decisions. Should have believed the intelligence and drive that got you through MIT and Harvard. My phone was lighting up with notifications, word was spreading fast, and by tomorrow my quiet anonymity would be over. What happens now? Amanda asked. For me, not much. Same research, same treatments to develop, same patients to help. Only difference is more resources to do it with. But you'll be famous. Jason pointed out magazine covers, conferences, and I'll still prefer Saturday nights in the lab to fancy parties. Fame doesn't change who you are, just changes who thinks they know who you are. Will you move out of that apartment? Mom asked, hopefully. Maybe. I've been thinking about a house with bigger laboratory space, but probably not the kind you're imagining. What kind are you imagining? Something with room for full research setup, greenhouse for test samples, workshop for custom equipment, functional rather than impressive. Uncle Robert laughed and shook his head. $3.4 billion. And you want a bigger laboratory, $3.4 billion. And I can afford to build the exact laboratory I want. That's the difference. What about us? Mom asked quietly. Does this change how you feel about family fair question? Part of me was angry. It took public success announcement for them to take me seriously. Part hurt they dismissed my work without trying to understand it. But mostly I was relieved. Relieved I didn't have to keep success secret anymore. Relieved I didn't have to defend my choices at every gathering. Relieved we could finally have conversations about my work without career change suggestions. I hope it changes our relationship for the better. I hope we can discuss my work without you trying to talk me out of it. I hope you'll trust me to know what's best for my life. We will, Dad said immediately. From now on, we promise to listen more and judge less. Better questions, too. Mom added about your research goals and happiness, not just financial security and social status. And we'll support you, Aunt Margaret said, even when we don't understand. Looking around at my family's faces, I saw something I hadn't seen in years. Genuine pride. Not in my bank account, but in what I'd accomplished, built, contributed to the world. Thank you. That's all I've ever wanted. Not for you to understand every detail, but to trust. I'm doing it for good reasons. We do trust you, Dad said. And we're proud. Incredibly proud. Even if I keep the tiny apartment, even if you keep the tiny apartment, Mom confirmed painfully. Even if I keep the old car. Even if you keep the old car, Uncle Robert agreed reluctantly. Even if I keep Target clothes. Even if you keep Target clothes, Amanda said, though, maybe consider occasionally shopping somewhere slightly more upscale. I laughed. I'll think about it. Afternoon light was fading. I'd been here 3 hours. That somehow transformed not just how family saw me, but how I saw myself in relation to them. I should go. 100 phone calls to return. And my research team is probably wondering where I am. Your research team, Dad repeated, testing the words. 412 people, according to the news. Some of the world's smartest researchers working together to solve unsolvable problems. And you're their boss, Jason said, amazed. I'm their leader. There's a difference. I don't tell them what to do. I make sure they have everything needed to do their best work. As I gathered my things, Mom caught my arm. We have years to make up for years of not believing. Years of pushing you toward things you didn't want. How do we do that? I thought for a moment. Start by visiting the lab, sometime not to judge, but to see what we're working on, to understand what I spend my days thinking about. We'd love that, she said immediately. And start thinking of success as more than financial security. Success as impact contribution, making the world better than when you found it. We can do that, Dad said, and maybe I grinned. Stop trying to set me up with finance guys. What's wrong with finance guys? Aunt Margaret asked. Nothing, except he spent our entire dinner explaining why biotech was a risky investment sector. The room burst into genuine family laughter for the first time in years. No more finance guys, Mom promised, but maybe invite this researcher to Sunday dinner. I will. Fair warning. He's even more passionate about gene therapy than I am. Is that possible? Uncle Robert asked. You'd be surprised. Heading to the door, I turned back. They were still talking animatedly, processing everything they'd learned about me in one afternoon. For 8 years, I'd lived a double life. Successful biotech entrepreneur weekdays, disappointing daughter weekends. Maybe that was finally over. Maybe now I could just be myself all the time, with everyone I cared about. Olivia, Dad called. Yeah. Next Sunday when you come for dinner, will you tell us about the Huntington's treatment? I'd like to understand how it works. I smiled. I'd love to. For the first time in longer than I could remember, I was actually looking forward to Sunday dinner with my